Greetings, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll look at the 5 important questions in Unit 1. First question is, compare the 3 kinds of roles assessment plays in student learning. Introduction. Assessment is an integral part of teaching learning process. It is not merely a tool to measure achievement, but plays multiple roles in improving learning. In modern education, assessment performs 3 major roles in student learning: assessment of learning, assessment for learning, assessment as learning. These 3 roles differ in purpose, process, and impact on student learning. Understanding the differences helps teachers use assessment effectively. Assessment of learning, meaning assessment of learning refers to assessment conducted after instruction to determine what students have learned. It is mainly summative in nature. Purpose: to measure achievement, to assign grades or marks, to certify learning, to promote or select students. Characteristics: conducted at the end of a unit or term. Focus on outcomes. Teacher directed, formal examinations, quantitative evaluation. Examples: annual examination, half-yearly exam, board examinations, final test. Role in student learning: measures level of attainment, provides accountability, determines academic progress, however does not improve ongoing learning. Assessment for learning, meaning refers to assessment used during instruction to improve learning. It is mainly formative in nature. Purpose: to monitor progress, to provide feedback, to identify learning gaps, to improve teaching strategies. Characteristics: continuous and ongoing, diagnostic in nature, feedback oriented, interactive. Examples: classroom questioning, quizzes, assignments, observations, feedback, comments. Role in student learning: guides improvement, enhances understanding, supports skill development, encourages active participation. It directly contributes to better learning outcomes. Assessment as learning refers to assessment where students actively monitor and evaluate their own learning. It emphasizes self-regulation and reflection. Purpose: to develop metacognition, to promote self-assessment, to build independent learning, to encourage responsibility. Characteristics: learner-centered, reflective, process, self and peer assessment, goal setting, continuous self-monitoring. Examples: self-assessment checklist, learning journals, peer assessment, reflection notes, portfolio assessment. Role in student learning: develops critical thinking, encourages autonomy, improves lifelong learning skills, enhances confidence. It improves students to take control of their learning. Comparison of the roles of assessment: summative, formative, reflective. After instruction, during instruction, throughout learning. Final result: improvement, self-monitoring. Teacher and student. Certification, improvement, self-regulation. Limited, continuous, self-generated. Passive, active, highly active. Marks or grade, comment or guidance, reflection, and goal setting. Interrelationship among the 3. Although different, the 3 roles are complementary. Assessment of learning measures achievement. Assessment for learning improves performance. Assessment as learning builds independence. An effective classroom integrates all 3 roles. These are the advantages and limitations. Conclusion: assessment plays 3 important roles. Each serves a distinct purpose: measuring achievement, improving performance, and developing self-regulation. A modern educational system should integrate all 3 roles to promote meaningful learning, holistic development, and lifelong learning skills. When used effectively, assessment becomes not just a tool for grading, but a powerful strategy for enhancing student learning. Second question: narrate the steps involved in the assessment process and their principles. Introduction: Assessment is a systematic process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting information to determine the extent to which educational objectives are achieved. It is not a single act but a continuous process that guides teaching and learning. An effective assessment process involves a clearly defined steps and adherence to certain principles to ensure validity, reliability, and fairness. Thus, understanding the steps and principles of assessment is essential for effective classroom practice. Part A. Steps involved in assessment process. Step 1. Identification of learning objectives. The first step in the assessment process is clearly defining learning objectives. Explanation. Objectives should specify expected learning outcomes. They must be measurable and observable. Objectives may cover cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain. Importance. Clear objectives guide both teaching and assessment. Step 2. Planning the assessment. Planning involves deciding what to assess, when to assess, how to assess, tools and techniques to be used. Step 3. Selection of assessment tools and techniques. Written test, oral test, observation, projects, assignments, portfolios, checklist, and rating scales. Step 4. Construction of assessment instruments. These include preparing question papers, designing rubrics, framing clear and unbiased questions. Administration of assessment. Step 5. In a proper environment under fair conditions with clear instructions. Step 6. Scoring and interpretation. After conducting assessment, responses are scored, marks or grades are assigned, results are analyzed. Step 7. Feedback and reporting. Feedback is given to students regarding strengths, weakness, and areas for improvement. Step 8. Remedial measures and follow-up. Based on results, remedial teaching is provided. Part B. Principles of assessment. Principle of validity. Assessment should measure what it intends to measure. Principle of reliability. Assessment results should be consistent and dependent. If the same test is repeated under similar conditions, results should be similar. 3. Principle of objectivity. Evaluation should be free from bias and personal judgment. Clear marking schemes and rubrics ensure objectivity. Principle of practicality. Assessment should be feasible in terms of time, cost, and effort. Principle of comprehensiveness. Assessment should cover all aspects of learning, knowledge, skills, and attitude. Principle of fairness. All students should receive equal opportunity and unbiased evaluation. Principle of continuity. Assessment should be continuous and ongoing, then limited to final exams. Principle of diagnostic value. Assessment should identify learning difficulties and provide solution. As principle of transparency. Students should be aware of criteria and evaluation methods. Principle of flexibility. Assessment method should adapt to learner needs and context. Conclusion. Assessment is a systematic and continuous process involving identification of objective, planning, selection of tools, construction, administration, scoring, interpretation, feedback, and remedial action. So, difference between third question, difference between summative and formative assessment. Conducted during teaching learning process, conducted at the end of the unit, terms, or course, aims to monitor students' learning progress continuously, aims to evaluate students' overall achievement, helps teachers identify learning difficulties of student, helps measure the final learning outcomes, provides continuous feedback to improve the teaching and learning, provides final judgment or grade, diagnostic in nature, evaluative in nature, focus on improvement of learning, focus on measuring performance, usually informal or flexible, usually formal and structured, quizzes, assignment, classroom discussion, observation, helps teachers modify teaching strategies immediately, used for promotion, certification, or grading. Throughout learning process occurs at specific point after instruction. Describe principles of good assessment. This is the introduction. Good assessment ensures fairness, accuracy, and usefulness. Without clear principles, it may become biased. So it is necessary for every teacher. Meaning of good assessment. It should measure intended learning outcomes, provide accurate results, encourage improvement, promote holistic development. Major principles: good assessment, principle of validity. As discussed earlier, it means the assessment measures what it is intended to measure. For example, a science test should measure scientific knowledge and skills. A language test should assess language proficiency. If assessment measures irrelevant factors, it lacks validity. Types of validity: content validity, construct validity, criterion related validity. Validity is the most important principle of good assessment. Principle of reliability. Reliability means consistency of results. If the same test is administered under similar conditions, it should produce similar results. Reliable assessment ensures stability and dependability of scores. Methods to improve reliability: clear instructions, objective scoring, adequate number of questions. Principle of objectivity. Objectivity means freedom from personal bias or subjective judgment, from teachers' personal feelings, gender bias, social background, etc. Principle of comprehensiveness. It should cover all aspects of learning: cognitive domain, affective domain, psychomotor domain. Principle of fairness: must provide equal opportunity to all learners. Principle of practicality means time, cost, resources, teacher workload, etc. Principle of continuity: monitors progress, reduces stress, encourages regular study. Principle of diagnostic value: it should detect strengths, weakness, guides corrective teaching, improves performance. Principle of transparency: students should know assessment criteria, marking scheme, learning objectives. Principle of feedback: feedback helps students understand mistakes, improve performance, gain confidence. Without feedback, assessment loses its educational value. Principle of flexibility: assessment methods should adapt to individual difference, diverse learning styles. Flexibility ensures inclusiveness. Now, the relationship between measurement, assessment, and evaluation, these three terms. Now, meaning of measurement. Measurement refers to the process of assigning numbers or scores to an individual's performance according to the established rules. Now, it's quantitative in nature. Example: a student scores 75 out of 100 in science. That is called measurement. The characteristics are: it's quantitative, objective, precise, limited to observable performance. It answers the question how much. Meaning of assessment is the process of collecting information about students' learning, relationship, understand the progress and achievement. It includes both quantitative and qualitative data. Example: a teacher observes student participation in class. Portfolio assessment of assignments. It answers the question how well is the student learning. Definition of evaluation: it's a process of making judgments about the value or effectiveness of student learning based on assessment data. It involves decision making. Example: deciding whether a student is promoted to next class. Answers the question how good is the performance or what decision should be made. Characteristics: judgment based, qualitative or value oriented decision making process. Relationship among assessment and evaluation. Measurement is part of assessment. Assessment is basis for evaluation. Evaluation is the final judgment. An example: measurement. A student scores 80 out of 100. So assessment: teacher analyzes answer and identifies strong understanding of theory, weak performance in diagram. Evaluation: teacher concludes student has achieved learning objectives satisfactorily, grade awarded A, and student is promoted to next class. And measurement: score is 80 on 100. Assessment is analysis of strength and weakness. Evaluation is final judgment and grade. So these are the 5 important questions. These 5 questions cover almost all the portions of unit 1, and these questions can be expected for the exam. Thank you.